So we had a request on the forum to create a video, basically a how-to video, how to model this part here. It's an ore holder that's coming out of Carbide 3D using Carbide Create to model it, but they want to see how it's done in Alibre, and probably it'll be modeled in Atom 3D, which has a reduced tool set from Alibre Expert and Pro. So I'll be using the reduced tools similar to what Atom 3D has when I'm modeling this up. First thing I'm going to do is going to figure out, I got symmetry on from this line to the left is symmetry, and this back end here on the right hand is not symmetrical. We've got a 5 3/8 offset on this line, 4 3/8 offset to this line. And I'm going to put my origin at the intersection of this horizontal line here and the vertical on the left hand side, so the origin will be down in this point here. So with that said, let me move this off to the side and we'll get started sketching. So one thing I'm going to make sure is check my units here. I'm going to be modeling this in decimal inches at three place tolerance. And I'm going to begin my sketch on the XY plane. And to begin with, I'm going to put in a reference line. Just drag it off here horizontal. And I'm going to make this dimension, this from the origin to this line is going to be 4.375. And then I'm going to make this end node vertical to the origin, just to lock that down as far as for the origin on the left hand side here. And then we'll grab our straight line tool and start sketching. And I'm not going to worry about dimensions yet. I'll just start sketching out the basic shape. And you can see I get these inference lines there, the dashed lines there, once in a while pop up. I'll try to use them as much as possible. And then I'll finish off here and end that. So what I've done so far is I've traced basically around here. These fillets come in later on, but I've got an apex between these two lines. Down here, come up to a point, sketch around this point, and I'm going to end right here at the intersection of these two lines, because everything to the left is symmetry and to the right will be non-symmetrical. So now let me put some more constraints and dimensions on here. So start off first, we're going to bring up this horizontal constraint here, and then this is an equal. I don't want that to be equal, but I do want these two lines to be collinear, this one and this one and this one and this one. I want this to be vertical, and now I want a parallel in here. I'll go to parallel. It's going to be parallel. All four of those are going to be parallel. And now let's see. So those are connected, and those are connected, and they're parallel. Okay. So now we can put in some dimensions. And the first dimension from this point to the end is going to be 0.75. From this point to the center line is going to be 2 1/16. 0.0625. And then the angles, I got 135 degrees here. And 135 here. Now, rather than keying in 135, since I know that my angle A1 is 135, I can just type in A1 Now those are the same. And now from this line to this line here is going to be 4. And from this point to the end, got my point here, it's going to be 2 1/8 from the point to the end, and then the length of that line is 1 3/4, 3 5/16 to the next point, another 1 3/4 to this line. So we get from this point to this line 2.125. This line length is 1 3/4. And now for this second line here, I make this one equal, put an equal constraint on there. And in between from this point to this point is going to be 3 5/16, 3.125. And then I want 45 degrees between here and here. And these are going to be 135, which it is, because now I've got all this angle constraint up there. This dimension here, from this line to the center line, is 1.125. And these two are collinear. And let's see here, 1 3/4, 1 3/4. Now this final point right here at the apex intersection of these two lines is 1 5/16, and that should finish off the sketch, making it all turn black and being fully constrained. So from this point to here is 1.3125. Bingo. Okay, so now we have a complete sketch. Everything is fully constrained, and now I can go and bring it my extrusion tool, extrude boss, and I'm going to extrude this to 0.75 and okay that. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do is going to add some fillets. So we'll grab some fillets here. The first one is going to be a 1/4 inch. And here's a key tip for you. And your label down here right now is going to just default to fillet number 2. What I'm starting to do, or what is a good idea, is key in fillet, put in the fillet size in the label. And then what we're going to do, make sure this is an active field up here, and then come in and we'll click on our edges that we want at quarter inch fillets on. And this one, and this one, and that's then okay that. Okay, now the next fillet. Okay, we did a 1/4 fillet here, 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 and here, and I believe there's a 1/4 inch fillet here too. Let me double check that, and here. So let me just double check. But for right now, we're going to do the 3/4, 0.75. Change our label down here, 0.75. And that's going to be in this location and this edge. And click apply there. Now for these other two, let's edit, right click and select edit. And then we come back here and we'll select that edge and this edge, and then rebuild. Okay, so now we have that this portion is complete minus the slot, of course. So now something you'll have to check in your me just verify a couple of things here. I'm not seeing a very good definition of a fillet on these two edges here, although I'm assuming that they could be filleted at a 1/4 inch. I'll go ahead and put a 1/4 inch fillet on them likewise so that we don't have any sharp edges on here. So those will be a 1/4 inch also. And now we've got all these edges filleted. Okay, the next step is going to be to mirror this part. Now you'll have to check in Atom 3D. I'm not sure if Atom 3D has this feature or not, but in Pro and Expert, you have the option of mirroring individual features or an entire part. So if you have this option to do an entire part, then all you have to do is change that type and then select a mirror plane, which is this face here, and it mirrors the entire piece over. Without that, if you're going to do individual features, then all you have to do is come back into your design tree, Design Explorer, and select all the features. So we have our extrusion and our two fillets, and then we select our mirror plane, and it does the same thing, but it just means that you have to come over here and manually select all those features. Okay, so now we're done with the left-hand symmetry of this part. Now we're going to work on this right-hand non-symmetrical part. Let's go back on the XY plane, start our sketch, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line, pick on it, and go to Project to Edge, and I'll just make a reference line and maintain association on there. So that gives me a reference line that's associated to that part. And now I come back and grab my solid line, and we'll start sketching. And we'll just throw our lines up here. And here I'm going to sketch the entire model. And then actually this line here, hit escape a couple of times to clear the selection, right click on this line, and we'll just convert that to regular figures to complete that edge. And then we'll put in some constraints here. We'll make these two lines equal, and we'll be vertical on this line. And then we will do a dimension from, well, here we need to dimension from the intersection of these two lines. We have a fillet there now, but we'll be able to get a point there. So if we come back over here and we'll select this edge, and we'll select this edge. We'll do Shift key down, select this edge, maintain association, and do reference, and then come up here and we'll, in your tools, grab a node, and then we want to do an intersection constraint. So we'll draw the first figure, the second figure, and then the point. And now we have a point that we can dimension to. So we're going to dimension from this point to this line, and we want that to be 7.375. And let me just kind of rearrange our lines here a little bit. It's got to be vertical. And this dimension is going to be 15/16. And then we want to have an angle, and what's our angle is going to be here? 135. And angle here is going to be 135, which means that these two lines are going to be parallel, and these two lines are going to be parallel. And let's see here. Fillets, okay, this line length here. This is going to be 1.125. And I need another reference line in here. So if I come in here with a reference line, I'm going to grab my midpoint constraint on this line and just drag this out. Make sure it's horizontal. And then dimension from here to this point line, that's going to be 5.375. And this side to this center line is going to be 4.375. And we want 135. We got an angle here of 135. That's that. And this angle is going to be A4. And then from this center line to the center line to this point and the center line to this point are the same, so they're 2 3/8 both sides, so that's a little bit of symmetry there. So I'll dimension from this point to this line 2.375, and from here to here that's going to be D19, and it just links those two dimensions. And then need one inch there, and this is going to be, let's see what happens here. This is going to be 13/16. No. Thirteen sixteenths. And this should be 135. Okay. Okay, so now we've got that fully constrained. Let's go ahead and extrude that. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the FX button here. It's going to open up our equation editor, and we're going to go find extrusion 1. And extrusion 1 is going to be 0.75, so we'll just click on that, select it, click OK, and that puts D10 in here so that those two are linked together now, and that brings our part together. And now we've got some more fillets to put in here. So we got fillets on these two edges, and without any label on them, we've got a 1/4 inch radius here. I'm gonna guess they're a 1/4 inch here. got 1 inch on these two, and without any other indication what these are, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch on these also. So they can be whatever you choose at this point. But now I can't use these fillets here. I could go back and edit this, but this is because this is in the history tree. This is all past history, and I can't bring it forward. If I move this forward, it would come in after the mirror, and I would have to be selecting all these other edges here that are mirrored, and it would be a little bit tougher on editing, I think. So we'll come up here and we'll grab fillet, and we're at a 1/4 inch. So again, we'll label our fillet here at a 1/4 inch, and we'll grab this edge and this edge, these two inside edges here, these edges, and let's see here, this edge and this edge, and apply that. And then our final will be one inch. Change our fillet label here to 1.0, and we'll grab this edge and this edge, 1.0. Okay, and apply that. And now we've got fillets on everything. Now the next step that we have to do is we have these 2 slots to put in here. Now I'm not sure if Atom 3D has a slot tool. We have a straight slot, curved slot, circular slots. But since I'm not sure if Alibre has them, I'm going to create these with rectangles. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to just draw a couple of rectangles and dimension these. They're going to be 0.52 wide and 3 inches long. So we'll make the length of that one equal to the length of this one, and then we'll make the edges collinear, and then we'll dimension from the end here. This is going to be 4.5, and then we're 3 1/8 between the two of them. .125, and then we need to make sure that we're centered on here because they're on the midpoint of this. So let's grab a reference line, and we'll grab the midpoint of this line, and then down here, because we have a reference line that was created by this dimension, we can come up here and we can grab the midpoint of that line, and then we'll make that line horizontal, and everything shifts up into position. And then we'll come up here and we'll grab our extrude cut tool, and we'll change this to cut through all. And then our last step will be to fillet those slots. So we grab our fillet tool, and we're going to be looking for our sketch tool, sketch 3. So we'll grab our FX and we'll go to sketch 3. So I'll just resort our here we have our sketch 3 dimension of 520. So we'll grab this, click OK, and then we'll put that as a divide by 2, and then we'll come in and we'll select our edges on the corners, and that's going to fill it off our slots. And change our name here to 0.520. Click apply and done, and there we are. Okay, so now we have our part modeled, and the next step is, of course, you want to export this. So you have to go up here and I'm going to do an export and grab whatever your options are. I believe you can export out of Atom 3D as step files. The other thing you can do is export out a SVG file, but that's going to be a sketch. So let me just select this face, right click on this face and activate a sketch. Then I'll just select this face again, go in here, leave this as a solid line, click maintain association and click apply. And now it's converted all these edges to the sketch. And now we'll deactivate your sketch. So now you have a sketch here. If you right click on this sketch, you can export this SVG file to whatever location you want. And if you have reference figures in here, if you want to include them, go ahead and do that. But otherwise, you click OK, and then it's going to dump this out to wherever you want your files to be, so that you can bring that into your program for programming. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, leave me a message on the forum or on the video. So anyway, thanks for watching.